Stories, true stories. I have stage 4 lung cancer. Don't worry, this isn't going to be a depressing story about me. This is going to be a story about decision making and about how stories are built in this digital age. So bear with me for just a minute for my story. In 1998, I'm told that even though I'm a lifelong non-smoker, I have lung cancer, and that there's an 84% chance I'll be dead within 5 years. My wife and I make some decisions. We decide I'll go back to work because I love my job. Another decision, who do we tell? My natural inclination was to keep this quiet. I didn't want my cancer to define me. I wanted my story to be about my life. I wanted my discussions to be about other things. I'm president of an advertising agency in Richmond, Virginia. 30 years ago, I could have probably kept my little story secret and confidential. But in this age, that wouldn't be possible. It would never be news in the New York Times, but the word was going to get out, especially if I tried to squash it. Also, I didn't want the people I work with to be in the dark. People move to Richmond or to our New York office from around the world. They bring their families. We encourage advertisers to bring their accounts to the agency. The role of the president in the success of the Martin Agency was always exaggerated, for which I'm grateful. But if there was a reasonable chance that there could be an abrupt change in top management at our company, people should know. Certainly employees should know. Certainly the owners of our company should know. But even more important, I had to acknowledge that in this age, I couldn't control this story. I could control how the story would be told in the beginning, and that's obviously crucial. But I had no idea where the story would go from there. Think of the things presidents could keep quiet during their presidencies and lifetime, stories 1,000,000 times bigger than my little news. Think of the ways they could control those stories. They'd never get away with that today, not in the age of Gawker and WikiLeaks, not in the age of tweets and blogs and 24-hour news cycles. Back then, they could tell their stories. They could edit what went out. They didn't have 100% control, but reporters and editors gave them much more room than we have today. Today, public stories are more likely to be built by the crowd. That's obviously good in some ways, but it's not altogether good. The greatest and most effective control freak today, and the best secret keeper in the world, couldn't keep his health news from leaking out. I'm not Steve Jobs, of course, not even close, but like him, I worried about how the story would be told. It's hard not to be cynical about the wisdom of crowds today. The crowd seems to be denying evolution, global warming, financial common sense, the nationality of the president, the importance of education, and the idiocy of the Tea Party. The wisdom of crowds, it's hard to take seriously. Yeah, right. Fortunately for me, the little circle of people who'd be interested in my news would be compassionate. So I took a deep breath and sent an email to our staff. 2 very good things happened. First, the story took on a life of its own. The second is that even though I still have cancer, I've lived long enough to see the story unfold. But the story definitely built. I got tremendous support from every quarter, emails, notes, calls, visits. The local newspaper and the advertising trade journals, when they dealt with it at all, dealt with it elegantly, kindly. The wonderful people I work with created a We Love Mike website, and 400 people added wonderful messages that meant so much to me. I was asked to speak about my experience. One of our creative directors surprised me by turning one talk into a little red book. We now give every employee, and I've been invited by Workman Press to turn the agency's little book into a for-sale book. At this point, it's just embarrassing that I'm still alive. I feel like I've let people down. let me be clear. The good things that happen, I didn't make them happen. The story made them happen. The cliche today is that all of us in this room are brand storytellers. But that implies we have control over the story. Really, we are story beginners. We begin the story. And then we immediately become part of an uncontrollable group of story builders. We participate with our clients and with their audiences, and together we build brand stories. As Jonathan Mildenhall pointed out this morning, while storytelling happens through one medium, story building typically happens through many media. Story building also creates an interesting dynamic between simplicity and complexity. Story building allows the creation of multiple storylines. Remember when you needed to pound away at one unique selling proposition? Well, even if you've got one big USP, you can come at it a lot of different ways. Geico saves you 15% in 15 minutes, but it makes that singular point with up to 6 different campaigns at one time. The crowd then builds on those campaigns. Think just this morning, Randall mentioned Geico. Caroline showed some cavemen. JP had a Geico commercial, a Gecko commercial. Everyone builds on the stories that campaign started. Here's one of my favorite examples. It's about 5 years ago, but we had a campaign where celebrities help real Geico customers tell their story. Here's what one story builder helped us with.
The president did shrewdly hire an actual celebrity translator, though, to help him get his message across.
But we are not yet safe.
Help me! Somebody help me!
For America, 9/11 was more than a tragedy. It changed the way we look at the world.
Mashed potatoes, gravy, and cranberry sauce.
So we get help in building stories and building legend and building brand personality. Think for a minute of the differences in storytelling and story building. Storytelling has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Story building has a beginning and no end. Storytelling is about performance. Story building is about constant creation. Storytelling is a sermon. Story building is a discussion. Storytelling has an end point. Story builders have a goal, and this is important. Be clear from the beginning on your goal, as Jonathan pointed out this morning. Storytelling is at people. Building is with people. Storytellers have control. Story builders share control. The storyteller can edit his story. The story builder's story can be edited by anyone. Storytellers reflect their individual personal values. Story builders reflect our shared values. Story building is the art and act of assembling the layers of a story. Storytelling is linear. Building is organic. Both storytelling and story building require vision. Story building also requires agility. Storytellers sometimes break the rules. Story builders routinely break the rules. Storytelling requires an understanding of the fundamental narrative building blocks: tension and resolution, hero, villain, redemption, foreshadowing, all those story blocks. And so does story building. Storytellers lay the groundwork for story builders. Steve Jobs is a storyteller who triggers the Apple story builders. According to Harvard's Dr. Robert Cole, we form our values and behaviors by the stories we tell ourselves. Elections used to be won by the best storytellers. Now they're won by the best story builders. So while this stuff is important to us in our jobs as brand storytellers, it's even more important to us in our daily lives as parents and as citizens. Ethical standards count here for marketers, for educators, for journalists, for voters. We owe it to ourselves to get very good at this business of story building. At its best, story building is more powerful than storytelling because we all participate. It's not about the wisdom of far-off crowds. It's about the wisdom of all of us. Our next few speakers are going to underline that point. It's about the conversation we have with all of us. Thank you.